They called him the sword master of the Shogun, but his sharpest weapon wasn't the blade, it was his mind. While others chased victory in battle, Yagyū Munenori rewrote the very idea of war. He didn't fight to destroy. He fought to prevent the need to destroy. He believed the greatest warrior was not the man who could kill, but the one who could control the world without unsheathing his sword. This is the power they never taught in dojo halls. This is the code written between lines. This is the strategy of the invisible master. In an age where samurai carved their names through steel, Yagyū carved his legacy through presence. He understood something deeper than combat. That true victory wasn't in the clash of blades, but in the quiet moment before the duel, when one man's fear had already been awakened. He wasn't interested in fame. He was interested in control. While others screamed their code, he whispered his, and what he whispered became law. Law 1. Cut the root, not the branch. Most men fight like gardeners with dull blades, chopping wildly at branches, flailing at symptoms, never realizing the disease lives beneath the surface. Yagyū Munenori taught something far more dangerous. Don't strike where the enemy stands. Strike where his power begins. If a rival insults you publicly, don't fire back. That's what he expects. That's where his ego lives. Instead, ask, why is he provoking me? What does he need from me? What's his weakness beneath the noise? Because the insult is just the branch. The root is the fear behind it, the insecurity, the need for control. And that is what you must sever. A fool cuts what he can see. A master cuts what the other man doesn't know he's showing. This principle goes beyond duels. It applies to negotiations, rivalries, manipulation. If you want to dominate a situation, don't react, don't rush. Observe, trace the vine to the root, and strike once, deep, quiet, irreversible. Yagyū's greatest victories were not won with blood, but with surgical precision. He didn't just defeat opponents, he collapsed the system that empowered them. The difference? A warrior wins today. A strategist wins forever. Law 2. Calmness breaks chaos. In the chaos of battle, most warriors become wind, wild, unstable, desperate to strike first. But Yagyū Munenori moved differently. He became the mountain. Where others trembled with adrenaline, he stood completely still. Where others shouted and charged, he listened. He watched. He waited. The chaotic man tries to control the world. The calm man lets the world reveal itself. This wasn't just Zen poetry, it was lethal strategy. Because chaos feeds on reaction. It multiplies through panic. It wins when you lose your center. But if you stay still, if your breathing remains slow, if your grip does not tighten, then the chaos collapses under its own weight. Your enemy begins to doubt himself. Why aren't you flinching? Why aren't you swinging? What do you know that he doesn't? You become a mirror, and in that mirror he sees his own instability, his fear, his overreach, his weakness. The still blade cuts deeper. The still gaze unnerves faster than 1,000 screams. Yagyū trained himself to become the eye of the storm, not to resist chaos, but to make it spin around him. He knew, emotion is the enemy of timing. Desperation is the enemy of dominance. So when others stormed forward, he stepped sideways. When others fought to win, he waited to let them destroy themselves. Law 3. Wear no mask, carry no self. Your identity is your cage, and your ego is the key that locks it. Yagyū Munenori taught a brutal truth. The more you believe in who you are, the easier it is to control you. Most men wear masks. The mask of confidence, the mask of anger, the mask of virtue, but every mask is a handle, something others can grab, predict, manipulate. If your enemy knows what angers you, he owns your next move. That's why Yagyū trained his warriors to carry no fixed self, to be water, to be mirror, to reflect, adapt, and vanish into the moment. Not out of weakness, but because form invites attack, and formlessness makes you untouchable. He taught his students not to fight from pride, not to speak for applause, not to defend an image, because once you defend an image, you've already lost. The moment you say, "I am this," you've created a weakness. The man who needs to be respected can be disrespected. The man who needs to win can be baited. The man who needs control can be made to chase it. But the man who needs nothing, he cannot be touched. Yagyū called this the art of psychological invisibility. You don't disappear by hiding. You disappear by letting go of what can be seen. So when your enemies search for your weakness, your anger, your ambition, they find only silence. And in that silence, they lose themselves. Law 4. See before seeing. Before a man moves, before he speaks, before he draws his sword, he reveals everything, not to the ordinary eye, but to the one who knows how to see. Yagyū Munenori taught that true perception doesn't come from sight. It comes from a deeper faculty he called kan. Not vision, but intuition. Not logic, but awareness without thought. To the untrained, a duel begins when blades clash. To Yagyū, the duel was already won before either man stood. He would feel a ripple in the room, a shift in tension, a subtle change in the rhythm of a breath. And he would know who was afraid, who was bluffing, who had already lost. The body is slow, the mind is faster, but the spirit sees before both. Kan is the art of reading intent before action. It's how the master moves before movement is needed, how he steps off the line before the strike arrives. Most warriors react. The strategist doesn't wait. He doesn't even guess. He simply knows. And that knowing doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from quieting the noise inside, until the smallest signals become undeniable. Yagyū believed that timing was everything, but not timing in seconds, timing in energy. You don't win by being fast. You win by arriving in the one moment your enemy doesn't see coming. Cannot be taught in words. It can only be sharpened through silence, through stillness, through watching the world until it shows its cracks. And when it does, you move once, decisively, invisibly, irrevocably. Law 5. Use nothingness as pressure. Silence isn't the absence of power, it's a weapon sharpened so fine you can't see the edge, only the damage it leaves behind. Yagyū Munenori mastered this invisible art, the use of nothingness as psychological pressure. He understood that in a world addicted to noise, movement, reaction, and explanation, the man who does nothing creates the deepest fear, not because he's passive, but because he's unreadable, untouchable, and therefore unpredictable. A still man is a mirror, and in that mirror the enemy sees his own collapse. This is the pressure of presence, a quiet so dense it chokes the air, an absence so complete it demands the other man act and overstep. Imagine standing across from a warrior who neither attacks nor defends, who shows no expression, no readiness, no reaction, just stillness. You begin to question everything. Does he know something you don't? Is he baiting you? Is this a trap? Your own mind becomes the battlefield. Your fear becomes the opponent. Yagyū didn't break men with rage. He broke them with vacuum, a void so powerful that it forced the enemy to fill it. If your presence is stable, the unstable will destroy themselves to disrupt it. That's how nothingness becomes force, how silence becomes pressure, how calmness becomes a sword. It is not the volume of action that creates power, but the density of stillness. So while others raise their voices and flash their blades, you remain unmoving, untouchable, undeniable. Law 6, control without possession. Most men cling to power, to reputation, to outcomes they cannot guarantee. But Yagyū Munenori moved in a different current. He understood something few warriors ever grasp. To control something, you must first stop needing it. He trained emperors, advised shoguns, whispered counsel into the ears of rulers who could end his life with a gesture. And yet, he was never owned, never indebted, never enslaved by praise or status. Why? Because Yagyū never tried to possess power. He simply influenced its flow. Like a shadow on a wall, he moved with the shape of the world, never grasping, never forcing, yet always present, always positioning. This is detached control, to shift events without being caught inside them, to guide outcomes without exposing your hand, to shape the river without owning the water. The one who grasps becomes graspable. The one who releases becomes untouchable. Yagyū knew that the moment you need something, you create a weakness. The moment you chase loyalty, you invite betrayal. The moment you seek recognition, you give the world your strings. But the man who stands outside the game can move the pieces as he pleases. He cannot be seduced. He cannot be baited. He cannot be coerced, because he is whole within himself. Yagyū's presence carried immense influence, not because he demanded it, but because he withheld it. The more silent he was, the more powerful he became, not by owning people, but by becoming the one person they couldn't control. Law 7. Let conflict reveal the truth. Most men fear conflict, others charge into it, but Yagyū Munenori understood its true nature. Conflict is not danger, it is a mirror. When tension rises, people drop their masks. What they hide in peace, they expose in pressure. What they pretend in public, they betray in crisis. That's why Yagyū didn't always strike first. He let the situation breathe. He watched how the storm unfolded. He let the enemy reveal himself. Because in the rhythm of conflict, you see who controls their emotions, who crumbles under pressure, who postures, who pleads. Conflict is the truth serum of character. And Yagyū used it like a surgeon uses a blade, not to destroy, but to expose. I do not provoke war. I allow it to speak. This is a higher form of warfare. You don't fight to win. You let the enemy prove your victory. When a rival begins a conflict, don't react, observe. Does he shout to hide fear? Does he escalate to mask uncertainty? Does he stall, revealing hesitation? In this moment, you see beyond surface. You see essence. Yagyū would often let his students lose small battles on purpose, so they could see what lies beneath defeat. A single spark of tension can show you more about a man than 1,000 polite conversations. So next time conflict rises, don't rush to end it. Let it speak. Let it teach. Let it strip away illusion. That's not recklessness. That's X-ray vision for the soul. The world worships noise, action, fame, speed, glory. But the Ronin who walks alone, the strategist who speaks only when the war is already won, knows better. He doesn't chase control, he becomes the storm's still center. He doesn't need recognition, because he already sees what others don't. His victories are silent. His enemies collapse without knowing why. His sword may never leave the sheath, but it has already cut through illusion. This is the legacy of Yagyū Munenori, the Shadow Strategist of the Shogun, the master of unseen dominance. If Musashi was the thunderclap, Yagyū was the whisper that came before it. And if you've listened carefully, you now carry the same weapon, not in your hand, but in your mind. Use it, quietly, relentlessly, and vanish. Fade to black.